Imagine a society so advanced that it achieved something no other civilization in human history could replicate. A feat so extraordinary it reshapes our understanding of what human cooperation, cognition, and adaptation can accomplish. It is not merely a technological marvel or a monumental architectural wonder, but a demonstration of collective intelligence, resilience, and an unprecedented orchestration of social, environmental, and psychological systems. This civilization, lost to time yet preserved in fragments of archaeology, historical texts, and genetic echoes, offers us a mirror to examine the very essence of human potential. What they accomplish challenges our assumptions about the limits of human organization, perception, and even morality. We often think of progress as linear, one discovery building neatly upon another, a straight ladder climbing toward modernity. Yet this society defies that notion, illustrating that human ingenuity can emerge in ways both unpredictable and astonishingly sophisticated. To understand their achievement, we must consider not just the artifacts they left behind, but the invisible architecture of their minds and social systems, the psychological scaffolding that allowed such coordination, and the evolutionary pressures that shaped their collective consciousness. Imagine a network of human minds functioning like a complex neural system, each individual a neuron transmitting and receiving signals, where ideas, rules, and innovations flowed seamlessly across the societal brain. Their cities, rituals, and institutions were not merely pragmatic responses to survival, but emergent phenomena reflecting deep cognitive structures, perception calibrated to complexity, memory integrated with communal narratives, and behavior optimized for long-term cohesion rather than immediate gain. At the heart of this civilization's success was a subtle understanding of adaptation, akin to the way our nervous system responds to stress. Modern neuroscience shows that humans exhibit both fight-or-flight reactions and higher-order executive control, balancing instinct with reflection. This society seemed to externalize that dynamic at a social scale, creating collective stress response mechanisms embedded in governance, religious practice, and trade networks, allowing the community to absorb shocks that would have destabilized lesser polities. Their resilience was not brute force, but an intricate calibration of societal feedback loops. Every decision, every ritual, every innovation acted like a signal in a living system, modulating collective perception and behavior. In many ways, they turned their society into an adaptive organ, capable of sensing environmental, political, and economic perturbations and responding with a precision that modern science is only beginning to quantify. One striking feature, documented through archaeological layers and written fragments, was their approach to resource management and environmental integration. Unlike civilizations that depleted local ecosystems, they designed settlements that mirrored the principles of homeostasis. Water systems, crop rotations, and energy distribution were orchestrated not by coercion, but by culturally embedded incentives and social norms that aligned individual interests with collective survival. This is a profound demonstration of what cognitive scientists call distributed cognition, the process by which knowledge and problem-solving are shared across individuals, artifacts, and institutions. In other words, the society externalized intelligence across its population, producing decisions and behaviors that exceeded the capacity of any single individual or ruling elite. Their social contracts were layered with redundancy, ensuring that even when a crisis struck, the societal circuitry continued functioning. It is here that the neurological metaphor becomes particularly striking. Just as the human brain relies on parallel processing and multiple feedback pathways to maintain homeostasis, this civilization relied on overlapping institutions, communal rituals, and knowledge networks to sustain itself. History often celebrates visible achievements, monuments, wars, or kings, but the invisible cognitive and structural sophistication of this society eclipses mere artifacts. Consider how they approached innovation. Modern psychology emphasizes the importance of divergent thinking, the ability to generate multiple solutions to a single problem, and convergent thinking, the capacity to narrow options toward optimal decisions. This civilization institutionalized both. Workshops, councils, and learning spaces allowed experimentation while codified norms ensured stability. Knowledge was encoded not in libraries alone, but in performance, ritual, and apprenticeship modes that reinforced memory, social learning, and anticipatory planning. Their educational system functioned like a neural reinforcement mechanism, strengthening desirable behaviors and cognitive patterns across generations. In addition, their approach to conflict resolution provides a lens into the evolution of human cooperation. Neuroscience shows that empathy and theory of mind are critical for complex social coordination. This society scaled these traits at the societal level, employing rituals, mediating councils, and symbolic gestures to cultivate empathy not only between individuals but across communities, sometimes across hundreds of kilometers. What may appear as ceremonial pageantry was, in fact, a sophisticated modulation of trust and perception, a social technology that amplified cooperation and mitigated destructive impulses. Moreover, their understanding of risk and probabilistic reasoning was profound. Archaeological and mathematical reconstructions suggest they maintained extensive records of trade, environmental patterns, and population dynamics, allowing leaders to forecast crises with remarkable accuracy. In essence, they externalized cognitive processes of prediction and risk assessment into societal institutions, creating buffers against collapse. It is no exaggeration to say that their civilization functioned like an organism, with individuals as cells, institutions as organs, rituals as neural pathways, and information flow as neurotransmission. This perspective transforms how we interpret history. Each societal choice was both a reflection of individual cognition and a manifestation of collective intelligence. Yet the most astonishing achievement of this civilization was not their structural sophistication or technological acumen, but the ethical framework underpinning their survival. Unlike many societies that wielded coercion or fear, their governance systems encouraged voluntary compliance through shared values, narrative reinforcement, and moral architectures encoded in everyday life. Modern psychology would recognize this as a high-functioning moral matrix, where the brain's reward circuits are aligned with pro-social behavior, scaled to the societal level. They achieved a form of collective ethical intelligence, a rare phenomenon in human history, and one that arguably allowed them to endure environmental pressures and internal stresses that doomed other contemporary civilizations. One might ask, what does this teach us about human limits? The evidence suggests that our cognitive and social potential is not strictly constrained by individual intelligence or technological capacity, but by our ability to create complex, self-reinforcing networks of knowledge, trust, and adaptive behavior. This society anticipated many principles that modern neuroscience and systems theory now recognize. Redundancy in networks ensures resilience. Distributed cognition enhances problem-solving. Ethical cohesion stabilizes collective behavior, and ritualized learning strengthens memory and cultural transmission. They effectively operated at the frontier of what humans can achieve when mind, society, and environment are orchestrated in harmony. Interestingly, while their achievements were extraordinary, they were not infallible. Historical records indicate moments of crisis, famine, invasion, or internal schism, but the civilization often survived precisely because of mechanisms that, on the surface, seemed counterintuitive. For instance, decentralizing authority during crises reduced bottlenecks in decision-making, a strategy that mirrors neural decentralization in the brain, where multiple pathways maintain function if one is damaged. Similarly, allowing controlled conflict between subgroups strengthened social learning and innovation, echoing contemporary understanding of controlled stress exposure in neuroplasticity. In other words, what may appear as weakness or disorder was, in fact, an adaptive feature, a systemic design that amplified resilience. As we reconstruct these lessons, one cannot help but reflect on the paradox of human history. Progress is often measured by tangible artifacts or conquest, yet the invisible architecture of thought, ethics, and social adaptation may represent the true apex of human achievement. This civilization challenges us to reconsider what it means to be advanced. Is it technology alone, or the orchestration of minds in service of long-term survival and flourishing? Their legacy, partially obscured by time, whispers profound insights about our own potential. By examining the interplay of collective cognition, ethical alignment, environmental integration, and adaptive stress response, we uncover a blueprint for sustainable human complexity. This convergence of historical observation and scientific principle is not coincidental but indicative of universal constraints and opportunities inherent to human systems. In contemplating their achievements, we are invited to reflect on our own societal designs. How can we harness collective intelligence without succumbing to fragmentation or inequity? How can individual cognition be amplified through distributed systems while preserving autonomy and creativity? The civilization in question provides a historical case study, a thought experiment rendered real by material evidence, demonstrating that human potential is amplified when cognition, society, and environment co-evolve synergistically. One of the most profound metaphors for their accomplishment is the concept of resonance. In physics, resonance occurs when a system vibrates at its natural frequency, amplifying energy with minimal input. This civilization achieved social and cognitive resonance, where individual behaviors, institutional rules, and cultural narratives align to produce outcomes far exceeding the sum of their parts. Their cities, rituals, governance, and learning systems all vibrated in synchrony, generating a societal signal of extraordinary power and endurance. Yet, the most humbling aspect of their legacy is its fragility and impermanence. Despite achieving something no other society ever did, they eventually faded, leaving only echoes. This reminds us that even the most sophisticated adaptations are contingent, dependent on continuous care, learning, and alignment with the environment. Their story is a meditation on the interplay between brilliance and vulnerability, a lesson in humility as much as in admiration. In conclusion, the civilization we have explored demonstrates that human potential is not merely a function of tools, weapons, or monuments, but the subtle, intricate orchestration of cognition, social systems, and ethical coherence. They externalized intelligence across populations, aligned incentives with survival, and created adaptive feedback loops that allowed them to thrive under conditions that would collapse other societies. Their legacy is not just historical but instructive. By studying their methods, we glimpse the deep architecture of human possibility and the ways in which mind and society can coalesce to achieve what once seemed impossible. As we reflect on this extraordinary civilization, we are left with a question that transcends history. If humans are capable of such coordinated intelligence and ethical sophistication, how can we apply these principles today to address the unprecedented challenges we face? Can we design societies that balance innovation with resilience, freedom with ethical coherence, and complexity with adaptability? The echoes of this lost civilization are not just whispers from the past, but guideposts for our collective future. By looking through the lens of history, neuroscience, and psychology, we are reminded that the limits of human potential are not fixed, but expandable through thoughtful design, cooperation, and ethical alignment. If this exploration of a civilization that achieved the unachievable sparked your curiosity, challenge, or awe, take a moment to reflect on what your role might be in the collective human experiment. How can we, in our own networks of family, community, and society, embody principles that extend beyond survival toward flourishing? History is not merely a record of what has happened, but a laboratory for understanding what we are capable of. Let us continue to learn from the intricate patterns of the past, to build social and cognitive systems that resonate with the potential of human intelligence, empathy, and ethical reasoning. Subscribe to Passlens to continue exploring these extraordinary intersections of history, mind, and society. And share your thoughts in the comments. What lessons from this civilization could guide us today, and how might we rethink the architecture of our own collective future?